It's here, my 2021 Bujo setup. Whether you're new to bullet journaling or you've been doing it for years, I am taking you through every detail of my planner pages. Hello friends, what's up? Welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell and today is one of my favorite and biggest videos of the year, and that is the 2021 bullet journal setup. This is my third year keeping a bullet journal. No, this will be my fourth year keeping a bullet journal, and I'm really excited about it. And I know a lot of you look forward to this video and are excited to get your journal set up as well. So I've put a lot of love into this one. We'll get creative with cover pages and keys and some creative and interesting layouts for the year ahead. I'll keep this short because it's a long video. What I will say is I hope you'll give bullet journaling a try if you haven't before. Your journal does not need to look exactly like mine. This is just, to get those ideas flowing. And we've also divided this video into chapters. It makes it easier to jump around. So if you want to see just the cover page or just a layout from later in the video, you can kind of move around and get a hand with whatever you're working on at the moment. So let's get started. So my big news for this year is that I bought myself a new journal. So many of you have recommended the Archer and Olive notebooks to me, and so far so good. I love it. I have been using the Bear and Fig journals for the last 2.5 years, and they're awesome, and I have a lot of love for them, but this is my hobby, and I wanted to switch it up this year. And so far, what I love about the Archer and Olive notebooks is that they have a hardcover, fabric cover, just like the Bear and Fig, so I love that. And then the pages are incredibly thick. Like, the paper quality is amazing, and that means no ghosting or bleeding, and it could also possibly mean I can use different mediums in my journal, which we'll get into that later perhaps. I guess just one last little thing is that the pages are really bright white. I never really thought about that before, but I appreciate it, especially when your markers just look really true to the color that they are. If you're following along and you don't have the same journal, that does not matter at all. And let's just talk about some of the other supplies that I'm going to use. If you've been here for a minute, you know I love a mechanical pencil. You just never have to sharpen them, easy to use. Grab yourself a gum eraser, something nice and soft. And then, of course, we'll be using fine liners, whether it's a Pigma Micron or a Meloto black liner. Those give you a ton of precision. And then I have a white gel pen. All my supplies are linked in the description. I also have some binder clips. They keep your pages nice and flat. And this year I'll be using a little bit of washi tape, and you can see I've kind of developed a bit of a color palette here, just gray and white. And then I have some black pattern tape as well. So it all kind of works together and looks nice together. I also have some markers, some brush pens. And last year I used a lot of Faber-Castell brush markers. And this year I've mixed in a lot more Tombos. I really like the brush tip on them. They don't bleed through the page. And honestly, I've kind of developed a bit of a color palette for my journal this year. You'll notice it's mostly cool colors, and they all kind of work together in different ways. I'll see how much I stick to it, but for now, that's the color story for the setup portion of my journal. So first up, on that inner front page, I want to create a nameplate, just a page for my name. I'll work with one of the colors in my palette. I think I'm going to go with the brown, and I'm just going to trace a circle using the fine tip end of that brush marker. And my circle's not perfect. You'll notice that right away. I'm going to let it go. And then all we're going to do is put a nice kind of motif of flowers running through that circle. I've seen a lot of stuff like this on Pinterest. I did not come up with this, but I love the way it looks. And of course, you're going to make it your own by incorporating your own florals. And it's just a really symmetrical design. And I often go with a wreath because, I love a wreath and I love the symmetry of a wreath. But I think this kind of gives that feeling. And it's something you can create really quickly and just write your name below. And it's a nice nice way to sort of open up and begin the journal, and it's not too time consuming. I'm placing my name at the bottom there. Now, if you need help with drawing flowers, I have a lot of playlists and I'll link some below. With our name page done, let's begin our title page. So I'm doing kind of a mystical crescent moon with florals. We'll talk about my theme a bit later, but for now, to draw the crescent, you're just going to trace the same circle twice. Obviously, that's not what I traced. I think I had some ugly painter's tape, but that just helps you get a nice crescent. And then I'm going to reshape my moon slightly so it's not too perfect. I'm also going to place some different sizes of circles. Those will act as a guide for drawing flowers, and we'll add some little leaves of different sizes in there as well. Once your guide is in place, you can begin to fill in each circle with your floral illustrations, whether you're going to draw a poppy or a daisy or whatever. I'm doing kind of round, big flowers that open nice and wide. We're just going to sketch in pencil, so it doesn't have to be perfect, a number of different flowers. And you can see mine are all different sizes, and having that guide there ahead of time really helps me to plan the design even before I begin the pencil sketch, really. Erase those florals so you don't end up going over your moon with pen, because they're all kind of tucked behind the moon. And then I'm going to place a little ladder down below as well. My theme for the 2021 setup is really all about magic and hope and sparkle. I think we all need a little bit of that going into the new year. I used to have this kids book that my mom would take out from the library, and even in the 80s, it was an old book. Like, it was probably from the 60s, and it was all illustrated in blue and pink, and it was about these kids climbing up to the moon on a ladder or on spider webs, actually. So I was very inspired by my memories of that and wanted to create something with a little mystique. I went over this with my black liner. This is the 02 nib, so a rather small nib, but not too small. So I'm still getting a good thickness of line. And then I decided I would like to add some line shading. Now, you can drop to a smaller nib size for that portion if you do like to add shading, but you may just prefer a contour drawing. That's a drawing that's just sort of the outlines. So don't feel that you have to add the shading. That's not everyone's style, but I do like to add some contrast by coloring some of the leaves in dark or adding a few lines to half of the leaf, say. Now that I'm done with my line shading, what I'm going to do is grab a brush marker and begin to color in the rest of that circle to give me a beautiful dark night sky. I had to actually switch my brush pen. You'll notice the one was kind of dying there. But a brush marker is so much better for doing the majority of that area because it won't bleed through as badly. And then just use your fine liner to go around the edge of the flowers. Finally, I took my white gel pen and filled in any of the little branches and leaves that had kind of gotten lost when I added the black. And I added a couple more leaves as well. And then I added a starry night sky, and I'm really getting towards my vision of this mystical, magical journal. To create my typical Dutch door cover page, I place a cutting mat below just the page that you've been working on, then take a ruler and a paper knife and just cut along the dotted line so that you've got two nice straight edges. And then I just quickly freehand the rest of it. It does not need to be perfect. You know, mine's always a little wonky and you'll never notice it. It's white on white. So there we go, our Dutch door. I am just breaking in here for a moment to ask you if you know about my Patreon page. Patreon is where I give all the channel bonus content, and it is especially relevant if you're into bullet journaling because every month we give the cover page that I create, and it's available for you to download and print if you're a patron. And for the setup, we'll give the yearly cover page as well as the key, so you can kind of get your journal off to a nice start with those printables. To join and support the channel costs only $2, and then it's $2 a month after that. There are other tiers. $5 gets you ad-free videos if you don't want to watch ads on YouTube. And then $10, we do a live video for those patrons every month, and those are always a lot of fun. So just a reminder, support the channel. It can cost as low as $2 and get all of the cover pages from 2020 if you want to, or even 2019, or just get started with our printables in 2021. There's also coloring pages, worksheets, extra videos, but you can go over to my Patreon and find out more about it there. To complete the cover page, I want to add 2021 to the page below. And so I printed it at a couple different sizes. The font is Rosa, which I like, and that's from PicMonkey. I just put a little bit of graphite on the back, then I tape it in place just where I want it, and carefully, or not even that carefully, go over the numbers in pencil. And you'll notice when you take up the paper, you've got a nice pencil outline, which could be erased if you don't like the placement. And then I carefully go over the numbers in pen. Now, I did find it was easier for me to turn the notebook so that I had somewhere to rest my hand. Depending how you draw, you may need that. And I finished my date with a little bit of line shading. Ooh, I really like the way that Dutch door turned out. I'm back to my black and white, baby, and it feels good. Don't worry, there will be color in the journal. I'm hoping to strike a balance. And after challenging myself to do more color last year, I'm excited this year to have a bit of confidence with color, but also just make the journal that is like my perfect journal. You know what I mean? Anyways, I am gonna leave the underpage blank for now because I have something coming up later in the video. I'm gonna put something on that kind of secret page that I've never used in my journal before, so make sure you watch until the end of the video so you can see what it is. Next up, we're going to begin our journal key, and you'll notice I'm beginning again with a traced circle. This will be a moon, and I'm going to write journal key in my best cursive kind of along the curve of the moon, and I did it a couple times till I was happy with it. And then I'm going to draw some little flowers, and they're all kind of growing up in front of the moon, so it's a very vertical design. I also kept my florals kind of to the left of the moon, and I think that looks nice. Just draw them in pencil first. Keep it simple, you know, some leaves and branches growing up towards the sky is going to look so simple, and it can be as basic as some oval shaped leaves and maybe one or two tiny flowers that you know you're good at drawing. Pencil first, and then I'm going over it with my O2 black liner. And I kind of wiggle the pen a little so not all the leaves are too straight. You know, you want it to look organic and natural. And it's also a good idea to shade some of those leaves, so the black just gives you a little extra contrast. Then you're going to carefully trace around that circle. That's always a bit scary, but mine turned out okay. And trace over your lettering as well. So that's our basic design for the key. Now let's add some color. Yes, we need a little color in here. I am, using the markers that I chose for the general color palette. So very cool kind of burgundies, pinks, grays, and blues, and just adding that little hint of color. This journal key, like the nameplate, comes together pretty simply, and that's what I want for my journal this year. It's just simple illustrations, a little bit of color, a little bit of black and white. We got the old warm gray marker out here. You know, I can't live without that. And I am just adding some broken circles and a bit of an outline, maybe even a bit of a scribble to do the shading on the moon and make this circle look like a moon. Some of my colors in the key got a little weird. Not quite sure why I used brown in there. It looks a little off. I'm trying to cover it up with the green. And then of course that kind of gets muddled a bit, but whatever. I think I could save it. But another idea you could do for the key if you're doing the same one is to color in the moon and then just leave the flowers black and white. If you like black and white like me, I think that would look really pretty. For my next layout, I want to do a 2-page spread dedicated to either resolutions or goals or affirmations, whatever you are into, naming at the start of the year. And yes, it is going to be in color. So if you saw that black and white at the beginning and you were getting nervous, this is a colorful one, baby. What we're going to do is, you've seen me do tons of stuff like this on the channel before. It's a 2-page floral pattern. We're creating a pattern by kind of choosing a color and doing a leaf. Then we choose another color and we'll draw, well, I'm drawing a berry using burgundy and brown. And I started with a dark gray leaf. Then I've got my kind of warm beige, and I'm going to do this messy rose. It's just, obviously you can see it's just a scribbly spiral. And then I'm using another warm gray to add leaves and a little stamen at the center. Then I'm incorporating that dark green and using the warm gray to create a white flower. And the whole pattern comes together really easily, and it's fun. You know, think about your color palette first. You don't have to do the same as mine. And you can put your flowers and leaves as close together or as far apart as you like. I've left quite a bit of negative space, and I think it strikes a nice balance and looks good. Then the next thing we're going to do is add a bit of ripped paper here, and I just collect paper out of magazines or wherever I see a good colorful paper. Part of this is craft paper that was on a bouquet of flowers that I bought. So I've just ripped it using a ruler, and I've glued it in there, and then I'm using my white gel pen to write resolutions on the left-hand side of the page, and of course on the right I'm going to actually place my resolutions, which are a lot the same as last year's because I did not achieve my resolutions. I'm going to knit that sweater any day now. I really am. Just to finish off this page, I think what I will do is add like a tiny little bit of washi tape, and that's just going to, I don't know, even though this stuff is glued in, I think it'll just bring the whole page together and kind of make it all pop a little bit more. Just using the very neutral colors of washi tape that I have. I'm really liking this gray. The beige color I thought I was really gonna like, but it kind of looks like Band-Aid. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much I use that one. Next, I want to create a year at a glance and a date book sort of in one. So I've divided my page in half and then divided it in half again. And look what Shayda got, a circle tracer. If you've been here for a minute, you know I've been freehanding my circles for about 3 years, and they're always a bit wonky. Well, I spent my $8 and I got my circle tracer, so I'm pretty happy. I've planned out my calendars in pencil, and then I'm going over them with my smaller fine liners. I use the 02 nib for the months and then the 0.5 nib for the calendars. Then I'm using my brush marker to fill in my perfect circles, and I am using the gel pen to put just like the month, the first month, second month. And that's how I'm gonna go along here. What I did last year is I just put all the calendars on one page, and I think that's a really common way to do it. It's kind of just gives you somewhere to go to see like, okay, what day does the month of May start on? And then I had a separate date book, but this time I wanted to kind of mesh the two. And since I don't use my planner that heavily for prospective dates, I think this will give me enough space to add everything I want to add. So this is going to work for me. It might not work for you. Then what I'm going to do to finish this page and add a little bit of pretty and a little bit of color, of course, is just place some florals along the bottom margin. And that gives me space between the calendar and the illustrations to, put those important dates. Again, I'm drawing from the color palette that I had decided upon before even beginning the video. So it's a lot of grays, a bit of burgundy, some cool minty greens and dark greens, and just having a bit of fun doing those vertical flowers where they're all kind of growing up from the bottom of the page. It's a really simple and effective way to make a pretty illustration quickly. And especially if you think about the color palette ahead of time, I think you'll really set yourself up for success and you can have a lot of fun with this. I did kind of
cool colors on the January, February page for winter. Of course, it's winter where I am in that month. And then as the months get into spring, I've added some more burgundy and purple to kind of warm up the color palette. And that's just a fun way to approach it, I think. Yes, it's all florals. What you could do is do seasonal illustrations, snowmen and fall pumpkins. I'm going to stick with the florals. That's just what I like in my journal, and it's quick and easy. Now that I'm on to my May, June, July, August page, I'm going to do a really warm, summery color palette. So I'm drawing still from my main colors, but I'm just working with the pinks, beiges, burgundies, and purples. So this one's going to be real pretty. Oh, and gray. Obviously, there's going to be gray in there. When I'm illustrating flowers in marker, I tend to think of them a lot the same way as I do with my watercolor designs, and that's to not focus on the flower as a whole, but to focus on the shape. So one flower might just be a spiral. Another, you might draw one petal at a time, and all the petals are a little different. You can see this burgundy flower. I'm just doing kind of a messy area of dots reaching up towards the top of the page. And I've also incorporated a lot of purple and gray leaves that kind of fill out the entire area. And this illustration is just a lot of bang for your buck. It's easy, and if you work in a dedicated color palette, I think the result will be quite sophisticated.
I like the way the year at a glance is coming together. I just like the really colorful bits. It's funny, I love black and white most of the time, but when the color looks right, like when a nice muted color palette comes together, that's like the best thing. Since the next page I'm kind of moving into fall and winter months, I think what I'm gonna do to make the color palette work is add a little bit of blue into it. That wasn't part of my initial palette, but I just think that's how I'm gonna kind of make it work. So yeah.
I hope that you'll like the balance that I've tried to strike this year between color and black and white. As I've said, I really challenged myself last year to incorporate more color, whereas 2019 was mostly black and white. So now that I've spent a year doing color, I feel much more confident and comfortable with it. So I did get a lot out of that challenge. Do you like to challenge yourself when it comes to your art, or do you kind of like to stick with what you're comfortable with? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's your hobby. I tend to stay in my comfort zone, but I will say that this color challenge, it did help me really grow as an artist. And I am loving the way this blue is coming together and making my fall and winter year at a glance look good.
I'm also highlighting all of the days of the week for this year at a glance page, and I think that's just going to help break everything up and kind of bring some of the color that's at the bottom of the page up to the top and just make everything, it's a really squeaky marker, and just make everything kind of fit together really nicely.
Next up, we're going to create a financial tracker together. So it's a really simple tracker that will help you mark your savings goals for this year. I did use a ruler, I know it's crazy, to make the rectangle that becomes the outline of this kind of window tracker. But then I'm not using a ruler to do my outline. I just find it's easier to pull the pen towards your body. It keeps you steady and helps you create a fairly straight line. Then I am sticking with that mystical moon and night sky theme. I've got a little crescent moon right at the top, and this tracker is so simple, which I really like. It's just layers and layers of clouds, and you could color them in through the year like purples and pinks or blues and baby blues. There's a section of cloud for each month of the year, and the idea here is I wanted to do something that kind of was like a thermometer. You know how you see those savings goal thermometers, but that fit with the theme and look of my journal. But it has the simplicity, I think, of the thermometer tracker. I'm coloring in the night sky with my black brush pen and then adding a starry sky, of course. And once that's done, you could add numbers going up the side, and then we're just going to put a simple title at the bottom. With your dot grid paper, it should be easy to sketch out a rectangle, then just give it a little indent at each end to make it the look of a banner, and then just add your title.
The savings tracker, I really love the way it turned out. It's so simple, and I think that's good. I think we need some layouts in the planner to be like not too complicated. This one is just gonna be fun and easy, and like I said, you can put the numbers up the side if you like, if you want to have specific financial goals for each month. Or if you like, you can print mine on Patreon, join the bonus content club, support the channel, and get weekly printables and extra goodies like an extra video each month. So head over to Patreon if you want to print my cover page, and the tracker will also be in there.
Well, that brings us to our goals page. I'm doing another dial style goals list this year. I just think it's a great way. You have this beautiful illustration in the center, and then you have tons of room for all your lists and different types of goals. Now, all I'm going to do is trace a circle. You want something that takes up a good section of the center, but gives you lots of large margin. And then we're going to place flowers along the bottom of that circle. So you can do a curving line, and again, start with a guide. Do circles of different sizes so that you know you're going to have flowers that are both small and large and medium, all the sizes. And then once you've placed your guide, it's easy to fill in those circles and say, okay, this one's going to be a poppy, or this is kind of an angled poppy. We'll do a daisy over here. Once again, I'm using big flowers that open up in a really sunny, kind of happy way. I'll also add some small berries and some lavender. Adding those smaller elements helps you to create a design that is just really interesting. You know, some things are small and some things are large. I'm doing some simple leaves, and that's pretty much it. Then the idea is we're going to place the moon once again. I think this will be the last moon. The moon will be the O of goals, and I'm going to write my 2021 goals. You get it. And the circle will end up being the night sky. Now I'm taking my O2 black liner and just outlining all of my flowers. I always do the illustrations in pencil first, and I begin with that guide, so set yourself up for success in that way. Again, I'm going to link some of my floral illustration videos and playlists, so if you need help with that, don't fear. We have so many videos for you to watch. So many, like more than you would think. And basically, I'm just going to go over this, and it's going to create, I think, this really pretty illustration in the center. And like I said, in those margins, we have tons of space for our goals. My goals list from last year was kind of funny. I had started checking stuff off, like I really wanted to take a trip, and then we booked it and I checked it off, only to, of course, not be able to go. So hopefully 2021, we're on to better and brighter. At a certain point, I like to erase all my pencil lines. It just helps me to really see what I'm working with. I went over my circle. It's not perfect. Doesn't need to be. Well, guess what? Perfectly imperfect. That's what we're going for. Once again, I'm taking my brush marker and filling in this nice black night sky, and then using my fine liner just to do the black that hits the illustration. So all those little tiny areas. Use your white gel pen to add any twigs or branches that got eaten by the night sky. And then I'm going to try to take my pencil and write goals in. You can kind of see the pencil. Yeah, you can kind of see it.
This is how I like to draw when something is really detailed or I'm just a little nervous. I like to put my head right by the page, and that just helps me. I don't know. Comment below if you feel the same way. Anytime something's like a little bit tricky, I just want to be right in there with it.
When I went over this with gel pen, I actually forgot what I had written in. I couldn't remember, but it was my 2021 goals. But you could write year of goals or my yearly goals. There's options. And then for the kind of dial style goals list, what you're going to do is make all these headers with lists, and we'll just kind of link them all with little lines going into the center. So in this way, your year of goals can be broken down into whatever topics or groups you desire. I'm doing purchases. I just like to write down some of the things that I hope to maybe save up for, and I break that down into need and want. And gosh, then I did lifestyle, I'll do health, I'll do relationship, and it might be just something like, keep taking your vitamins or go to the Y, or relationship stuff could be like order in once a week, that kind of thing. So just fun goals, and then some are more serious. I am adding a bit of line shading to the florals. I love my line shading, but it totally doesn't need it if you prefer that kind of graphic contour drawing. To finish this, I did add some broken circles and a little bit of a scribble to the moon just in the area of the crescent, and I think that really makes that big circle look like the moon. So there we go. Our goals page is complete. The next thing that I'd like to incorporate is something I often put in the journal, and that is a grid with a number of floral doodle ideas. It's a great place to come when you're creating one of your spreads and you just need a little extra inspiration. I am, of course, going to add some of my most used florals, and then I'm going to try to think of some ones that maybe don't come to my mind as easily. I'm starting with my usuals, which are kind of like, little curving branches with oval-shaped leaves, a berry, a little chamomile, which is kind of like a tiny chubby daisy. And those are my first four flowers. I am doing them in pencil first, then going over them in pen. All you want to think about, you don't have to do the same ones as me, although you obviously can. All you want to think about is some of the leaves should be a little larger, and some should be finer and more delicate, and same with the flowers. This is going to be your reference page as you move through the year. Here's one of my favorites. You just draw these little half circles, and then you divide that half circle into 3 sections. Add some stems and leaves, and it gives you this really cute little kind of floral that's in profile, and that one you'll see me use over and over again, and it's so easy to illustrate. I think from here on out, I'm just going to do this in pen, but do as I say, or do as I say, not as I do. You don't have to do it in pen first if you're more comfortable with pencil. I like to do an image that's kind of a combo of little berries and bigger leaves. I also like to do a flower that has kind of a scribbly stamen, and then these 4 or 5 large petals with large pointed oval shaped leaves. These are ones you'll see me go back to again and again. The next one, I'm just going to do like a really simple leaf shape. This is just to get your ideas flowing and give you that reference. I also like to incorporate these little spiral roses. Just make sure the spiral isn't too perfect. You want it to be a little wonky, and that will give you a pretty little rose, and fill in those leaves for a bit of contrast. Next up, a larger leaf. Do these pointed oval leaves. You can do them in 3s or 4s. One could be on a side angle, and just add a bit of line shading to give them that depth and dimension. Next up, I'm going to draw little wax flowers. These are so fun to add in your journal illustrations. They have a large round stamen and then these tiny round leaves, and some of the leaves can be a little smaller and flatter, especially the ones at the front or bottom of the flower, and that will give you a more 3-dimensional look. Tiny leaves and branches. That's the wax flower. I also do a fern. That's another thing that I'll add to many layouts and spreads. And for the fern, you're doing a stem, and each branch has more leaves than the one before. That's the formula. Make it as large or small as you like. Oh, and gosh, what else? We've done a lot of larger leaves, so let's do a branch that has some really, really tiny ones. These almost begin to look like little seeds or something, and just doing something that's delicate, honestly. It doesn't have to be difficult to be really pretty, and add some nice floral filler. I'll also add lavender to my reference page. It's a curving stem with these tiny little clusters of petals in groupings, and then some thin leaves. And you can do as many as you like. They look nice as a group. I would also recommend heading over to Pinterest and taking a look at floral illustrations. You might see some that really speak to you, and you could actually have 12 or 16 flowers that show up often in your journal, and it will create a really nice flow through the year if you use some of the same illustrations on the regular. So there are mine. I'm going to go over my title with a larger nib. This is the 04 nib, and it just gives my font, or my hand lettered font, a nice weight. So think about switching up the nib sizes of your pens when you're doing titles. And then we haven't done a lot of stuff on the left of the page. Sometimes I just leave those blank, but here I want to add some floral drawings. Why not finish it with that? So I'm taking a bit of my ripped paper, adding some of my washi tape just to give a kind of collage-y look, and then I'm going to draw those wax flowers. Those are some of my favorite doodles. The wax flowers are so cute. And I'm just going to do 2 floral illustrations. And I think this is a good example of how you can use the florals throughout the year. One little illustration in the margin can really bring a whole weekly spread to life.
With your florals, it's just nice to have a reference page, I find. I've definitely done stuff like this in my past journals, and you might be like, oh, you did this last year, but it's so nice to have a reference that you can pull from anytime you're like, what should I draw there? When in doubt, go with a wreath or a flower. And it's nice if you can say, oh, here are 16 flowers that I know I can draw, and that would probably look great as part of this weekly layout. See, I use the Band-Aid tape on this page, so I got like a medical vibe. Kind of weird.
My next page is also a 2-page spread, and this is going to be dedicated to my work or to social media, since that is my work. But I think if you're someone who's blogging or on Instagram, you could also use this to your advantage. It's all about planning. You can see I've glued in a little envelope and added a bit of my washi tape. I haven't used a ton of that yet, so I want to incorporate a little bit more. I am putting the social media title, social media year at a glance, adding some dark washi tape will give you a nice area to use your white gel pen. I've got these little Post-its. I think I got those from Washi Wednesday, and I'm going to place one at the top there. That'll just give me like a good to-do list that I can take out. And then I'm going to do a large list area here, and what I'll use that for is video ideas. Like I said, I've got the monthly to-do. Basically, I'm just dividing everything in little boxes or with a bit of tape, and it's going to give me a great area where I just need to write down an idea anytime I have one. I'm going to use my Dymo label maker. This is the old-fashioned label maker where it actually punches the letters. They're super easy to use, and I'm pretty sure you can get those on Amazon. I'll try and link one if I can find one. And I just put notes on the envelope. And then here I'm going to use one of the florals that I've just added to my reference page. And like I said, it just brings the whole spread together, and it can create a nice flow through your journal. So that's the beginning. I think over here, just to fill in space, it depends how many lists you have. You may not want as many titles as I'm putting. I'm going to put YouTube 2021. I'm just going to kind of thicken up my hand lettered font by going over it so it looks nice and chubby. And then because I have this thick font, it makes it really easy for me to add a little bit of a shadow. So just use a smaller nib fine liner, and you can add a line on just the right-hand side of the letter. It's really simple to do. And then in this final area, I'm going to have my goals for the channel. I always put vibe. I just find it so helpful to write down what I want the social media to look like and feel like for the viewer experience. And you'll notice I added a little washi tape on the page edge, and that's just going to help me find this page really easily because I'll be using it all year long. Finally, I'm going to finish this with a quote. You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. That's a C.S. Lewis quote. That's kind of what it's all about, motivating yourself for the year ahead. I mean, that's really the whole purpose of the bullet journal.
All I need to do now with this social media page is kind of get rid of some of my pencil marks, and there's a lot of them. But otherwise, I think this page is gonna really nicely carry me through the year. And it's just a great place for me to put notes if I'm working in a coffee shop. Oh, I hope I can go to a coffee shop and work soon. Then I can kind of tuck them in the little pocket. I can take that little Post-it note out anytime. Oh, I don't know why I glued that. Yeah, don't glue that if you're doing that. But I will be able to take that little Post-it out and replace it. So every month I can kind of have like a random thoughts to-do list. And then of course, I'm gonna list all my goals and all that stuff on the side. And if you're doing social media or whatever career you're in, if it's something that you have a lot of, kind of have to be self-driven, a page like this, I think it's a great way to write down all your ideas, and just the power of writing things down. I can't say enough about that.
Okay, friends, I promised you something new at the end of the video, and I'm gonna do it. I'm a little nervous, let's be real, but my title page is not complete. I didn't put anything on the page below it, so I'm gonna try some watercolors. Yeah, I've never used watercolor in my journal. I do get requests for that, and I know a lot of you love using watercolor, so let's give it a go. From all the black that I added to those night sky spreads, you could probably see I did not get any ghosting or bleeding. I did not have to skip any pages. The page quality in this journal is amazing, so I'm pretty hopeful with the watercolor. I do keep checking it. I'm like flipping the page over. Is it bleeding through? Is it ruining the page below? And it wasn't. You know, it's not proper watercolor paper, so you want to go light, but I'm putting down a whole wash, which is, you know, that's a lot of paint. And I just did it in this light creamy beige, and it's you know, that's all I'm gonna do. And I let that dry, and now it's giving me a beautiful color wash backdrop for a final illustration. And I am liking watercolor. The page buckled slightly, but it's such a small price to pay for the beauty of a new medium. And what I want to do here is use the language of flowers. If you don't know about the Victorian language of flowers, definitely Google it. Basically, all flowers have a meaning. And so what I've done is chosen 4 flowers that have meanings that speak to me, and I'm going to do an illustration and kind of set this intention for the year. I have an apple blossom for peace, a fern for magic, a snowdrop for hope, and then a chamomile, which is for adversity, but I kind of mean that to represent like overcoming adversity and facing adversity. We did so much of that this year, and next year I want to be like moving on and taking all the best parts of that and incorporating them into my future. As usual, I went over this in pencil, I started this in pencil, and then I'm going over it with my fine liner. Remember to wiggle that pen a little. You don't want those flowers to look too smooth or too perfect. And I've just created a design where everything kind of works together. So the large fern, the magic fern, is in the back. The chamomile is kind of front and center. I have my hopeful snowdrop there. She's so cute. And then my apple blossom on the side. And I did add a little bit of my line shading. I just love the way the illustration looks on top of that watercolor wash. I'm writing the words of the flowers or the meanings down below, and I've erased all my pencil. Let's take the clips off so you can really see how this page turned out. The beautiful, magical Dutch door for 2021. I will bring this very lengthy video to a close with a bit of a flip through. We did the name page, and then it's onto the Dutch door, and below I've placed the floral illustration, and I was inspired by magic and hope, and I was also inspired by the illustrations of tarot cards. They're so beautiful and so interesting. We have our journal key. That one's really simple and achievable. A 2-page spread based on resolutions, or you could also do affirmations. And then we have the year at a glance, which is also part date book, and it just gives you a chance to say, okay, that's what day June 1st is. So it's nice to have that all contained within your own planner so that you're not having to look it up or something when you're doing your spreads. Then we're on to our savings tracker. Remember, you can print that on my Patreon. And then we have our Dial Style Goals page. This gives you lots of room for all your dreams and goals. I have some floral doodle ideas as a reference. And I have my social media kind of at a glance, all my goals and things that I need to write down to do with the YouTube channel. I will be doing one more tracker. That will be part of the January video, which comes out next week, the January setup. And just a reminder that you can print my cover page as well as the savings tracker. All the bonus content is available on Patreon.
So that's it. That's the start of my journal for 2021. I feel confident with this setup. It is my perfect journal. It's a little bit of color with lots of black and white and lots of florals and a bit of mystic and magic and hope. Yeah, I'm sitting here like I've been journaling just over one afternoon. We shot this over 3 days. I've been wearing this sweater for like a week. But that is it. So don't rush to get your journal done all in one go. It should be fun. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button. That is something that makes such a huge difference to this channel. If you love these videos and you want to help us make more, all you have to do is subscribe. It helps other people find the videos and watch them. It helps, us succeed in the YouTube space. So please hit the subscribe button. And yeah, head over to Patreon if you'd like to get some of that bonus content. We've made a bunch of printables so that your journal setup goes a lot smoother this year. And I'm gonna go have a cup of tea and change my sweater.